Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. E.
And I am Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality Man. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
I would say Happy Valentine's Day, but I'm single, so screw it.
Yeah, I'm single too, so yeah. But we can at least reflect on love as a concept as per the regulation standard. So there.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about the different types of love that were expressed by the Greeks, and the conversation that we had earlier before the stream started. Actually, I think would be a great discussion to have. As in one of the particular categories. So
Mm-hmm.
now, the first word for love used by the Greeks is one that I'm sure we're all familiar with, eros. Eros is physical love or sexual desire, which I'm sure every red-blooded person in America is familiar with.
Yeah, which translates probably pretty effectively into what you could call romantic love.
Yeah, passion, lust, that kind of thing. And I feel like this kind of thing, one, is treated to. I don't think it's treated with necessarily the weight that it should have in modern society.
Well, it's also very one-sided from a gendered perspective because like romance as an entire like subgenre of media, be it novels, be it movies, be it whatever, is almost invariably targeted at women, and even most like romance industry stuff is targeted at women to the point that it would seem odd or gauche or weird for a woman to be expected to reciprocate some kind of romantic affection in the direction of her husband. Let alone the fact that, of course, even in just terms of access, it is much easier for a woman to catch herself up in a romance than it is for a man, or that it is for a man, because of course, you know, incel, toxic fan, blah 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 blah. 80-20 rule, blah 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 blah. And let's be real about the 80-20 rule for a second. The 20% of men that benefit from the 80-20 rule are not the men that women would feel lucky to have. They are just the men who women feel are admissible to the discussion. When you get right down to it, female hypergamy circles right in on the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Most women, especially the extremely gynocentric ones, whether they be feminist or traditionalist, would not be happy until they had someone with the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, the wealth and resources of Elon Musk, and the politics and servileness and submissiveness of Steve Shives or Jonathan McIntosh. That is the goal. That is the ultimate goal for a staggering percentage of women. Not all, obviously, because there are honey badgers and there are anti-feminist women and blah and blah and blah, and there are even women who are neither feminist nor traditionalist. But that is a rather vanishing percentage of women, don't you know? Most women are either explicitly or implicitly in the I want somebody with the resources of Elon Musk, the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the politics of Steve Shives and Jonathan McIntosh category.
Here's the thing: like women will often express eros for men a lot of times really on superficial reasons, and then engage with them without even bothering to learn whether or not that person has any actual care for them at all. And I feel like in modern society, like hookup culture is a thing, and I feel like people are inclined to just sleep around with whoever and think that it's not matter. But when you consider that eros is the type of love that drive people to engage in sexual contact, which can end in children, and people now often find themselves having children today with people they may not necessarily want to maybe want to hook up with, but not necessarily have children with. I feel like it should be treated with more weight and consideration.
Well, it gets especially dark when you consider that a lot of women basically all but dehumanize men, because men are, as we know, valued for what they do rather than what they are, which is why so many of um the romantic criteria of the gynocentric variety of women, whether they be feminist, traditionalist, or otherwise, is so superficial, because it's the main difference, as I see it, between male dating strategies and female dating strategies is notable along the lines of PUAs versus the female dating strategy subreddit, which is when men are trying to pick up women, when they are shopping for a significant other or just a fuck buddy or whatever, they are aware that they, the men, are the salesmen. They are trying to sell the woman themselves. However, and you can see this if you look at the female dating strategy subreddit, when women shop for men, they are shopping for men in the way someone would shop for high-end appliances or expensive cars or a object you would invest in, like the kind of comparative shopping you would see on places like um I'm trying to think of a website that does the whole, you can save this and get these many features and blah blah. Like I'm trying to think of those, like
Home shopping network.
yeah, like those kind of websites where you can go and compare prices and features and all the bells and whistles of this latest high end appliance. That's how women by and large seem to operate. They don't see themselves as trying to sell themselves to men. They see it as men's job to sell them on buying the men.
Yeah, the thing is, it's so superficial. I saw this chart that really blew my mind. You know how women have the attraction to men who are 6 feet tall or over.
Yes, the
Well,
famous six sixes, I believe, is what we're up to now.
yeah, but I saw a chart where it says women attraction based on height, and it was like 5 feet, nothing, 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 and when I hit 6 feet and over, it just shot up. However, when they did that same chart in Europe, where it's measured in centimeters, it was a standard bell curve.
Hmm.
Yes, because the thing is, it's not necessarily the height itself, but rather the barrier of 6 feet, where it's measured in centimeters, where everything is so and so centimeters. It's a standard bell curve.
See, I would be curious about that, because I'm wondering if there is some kind of equivalent in centimeters of the 80/20 type logic. It is like what would the centimeters be for 6 feet?
I think a
One,
hundred and eighty something.
yeah, okay.
Like
So
here's the thing though, like because we have 12 inches and then it's a foot. There is obviously some kind of barrier, to reaching the next level. Look, you're like
mhm.
5 foot, 10, but this guy is 6 foot. But like with centimeters, like which one or two more centimeters when you measure it that way?
Right. But I do wonder, does that mean that there is no short king phenomena in Europe? Because I very much doubt that. I very much
Well,
doubt that it's
obviously there would
that
be a
different. I think it's just a fluke in how centimeters measure things.
obviously there's going to be a situation like if a man's 5'4", then or whatever the equivalent is in centimeters. Obviously, like there is like a point where like his physical height is low enough to a point where women just aren't attracted to him. But like when you necessarily like can't look at someone and determine, oh, this person is not yet 6 feet or just over 6 feet, like you're not going to be able to really just
Well,
look at that and like
what
apply
number
a
of
number to it.
centimeters? What number of centimeters does the bell curve bulge at? Like, where is the most? Where is the peak attractiveness in terms of centimeters? I'm curious.
I would have to look it up. 'Cause I don't have it with me on now, but I remember seeing that it was just, a bell curve when measured in centimeters.
Right. I'm just curious. Where do most women go? This is the ideal height for me. Where does the bell curve? Where does the bell curve bulge at? Because
It
that I
probably
think
would
is
be
more
about 6'6",
informative than the
6'3",
fact
I
that
would
it's the
guess.
bell curve. The fact of where does measurement notwithstanding, where does the female mind go? This is the ideal height. Because I know for me, and this is somewhat hypocritical, I guess for me, I prefer guys who are like 6'5" or over. I prefer my men quite freakishly tall, but that's just me. I don't, however, necessitate six others or five other sixes. By the way, I just happen to really like big tall guys.
Well, the thing that really caught my eye is the fact that it was such a dramatic drop off in America, where that wasn't the case in Europe. Like,
I find
there's
that
something about just the way we measure height that is, you know, causing an
yeah,
aberration in comparison to the rest of the world.
maybe it's just because our measurements are more clear. Maybe where whereas as you say, a centimeter is so small that there is no, again, I'm more interested in where the bell curve of the centimeters thing bulges at than the fact that it does bell curve there, because like that might be more indicative of, is there some kind of like almost universal ideal height for men? Because I know I like my men like very tall. Like 6 foot to me is still fairly short as far as my attraction goes, but I realize I'm kind of an outlier there. Um, so like I'm curious, if all other things being equal, is there some kind of ideal height range for men, and how closely does that line up to the whole famous six sixes things, or yeah, six sixes thing?
Let's move on to philia. Philia is affectionate love. Philia is a type of love that involves friendship. It's the kind of love that strong friends feel towards each other. Let's see. The Greek
Now,
philosopher Plato.
the natural question here is, why the fuck is philia distinct from eros in this way? Because you would think if you're romantically involved with someone, you would also, in theory, be affectionate towards them. In fact, you could almost go so far as to say the fact that there is romance without affection is like 98% of the whole problem. The fact that
Honestly,
someone
I
can
would
be
say that
romantically attracted to someone and yet hate their fucking guts, apparently.
honestly, instead of these being true reciprocated, I would think of it more like a Venn diagram.
Right, but what I mean is that in, especially in the Western world, and we just got done kind of partially examining it from the other end, there does seem to be a massive gulf between the kind of affiliative, affectionate love and the kind of romantic love, which might be something that is exacerbating the whole women seeing men as objects and appliances that can do things for them rather than other human beings. Like,
Well,
that might be
obviously,
the dead center of the heart of the problem, that there is such a drift between philia and eros in our society anyway. Because I'm what I'm willing to bet that back in the day, back when these concepts were like codified, there wasn't as much of a gulf between philia and eros. There was probably a phase in courting or relationship building where you started with philia and built up to eros there from there, kind of thing. Or at the very least that they coexisted for the most part.
which I think it would have been at least from the guy's perspective, being a guy and knowing how guys are attracted to women, it probably would have started with eros and then developed into philia.
Well, okay, yeah, fair enough. But point being that whether you start with Philia and end with Eros, or start with Eros and end with Philia, one would think that the two would be quite heavily linked in all other things being equal, because one would think that you would care about your romantic partner. But as we just went over, in our day and age particularly, there is so little correlation between Philia and Eros that someone can literally hate the fact that they have to rely upon someone and yet still want to bugger their brains out.
Yeah, speaking of which, that actually, because I don't think this is a two-part dem Venn diagram in terms of relationship. I actually think it's a three-part Venn diagram because there's another form of love that's further on the list, but we can jump to it right now because I think it very much would have a place in this discussion, and that is, hold on, pragma. Pragma is practical love, is love based on duty, obligation, or logic. And I feel like you have to have at the very least an element of that if a relationship is going to last for a very
Yeah,
long time.
you have to have some points in all three stats, surely, for a relationship to actually work. Because Lord knows that, like, not only is pragma basically absent in today's day and age, it's actually the bad guy. Like, it is the devil, according to so many people, whether they be feminist, traditionalist, or just generic, gynocentric bitches. Like, they literally say things like, um, causal transactions are entitlement, or expecting reciprocal relationships is entitlement, and that that um, being abstractly humane is what defines us as human, and anything else is baser and primitive. All that shit. Like if you could define one of these as straight up the enemy for extreme feminists, extreme traditionalists, and extreme gynocentrics of all stripes, I think it would be pragma that they would have the most issue with, because they seem to straight up hate the idea that logic or emotion should be in any way subject to duty, obligation, logic, or transaction.
Yeah, this sense of pragmatism is why relationships used to last much longer because they used to know that there's going to be a point where we're not happy with each other, where we're not necessarily having sex or we're fighting or something, but like logically we should not split up.
But yeah, we made our bargain, we swore our oaths, and so we have to stick to them, and so on. Like,
If they even know, like from a logical standpoint, that this thing, like it would come in like waves. There would be time where we were, like happy and all over each other, and times where we weren't happy and we couldn't stand aside of each other. Like it wasn't like an absolute all the time thing.
but yeah, in a sane world, look, in a sane world, the act of a long-term romantic relationship requires all three of these. In our world, though, um, even philia is seen as a little weird. Like, if you're a woman who actually likes men and cares about her man as a person rather than as a, you know, appliance slash bodyguard slash um, enforcer, um, then you're the devil. Let alone if you um, view any kind of human relationship with any sort of logic or transaction or obligation or pragmatism. If you do that last one, you are the devil incarnate.
you know, it was pragmatism that caused people to necessarily look past things like infidelity. Now, obviously, when it comes to infidelity, that can be extremely serious, and there are obviously limits to how pragmatic I believe a person should be. Like, for example, if a person steps out and it turns out one of your children isn't yours, then I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I'm gone.
there's a point at which you have broken your vow, you have broken your oath, and therefore I am no longer obligated to uh
Not only just
abide
broken
by
it, but
my
broken
end of
it
it,
beyond
kind of
repair.
thing. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like now everybody has such a twisted conception of what marriage and loving relations are supposed to be, that the fact that you would have an obligation at any to any degree to actually stay in the relationship is just anathema to them.
Again, pragma is straight demonized. Philia is as marginalized as they can make it, and Eros is like the whole kit and caboodle in this day and age.
Yeah, and the thing is, people now wonder why people are lonely or not getting married, or end up 40 and divorced and having to struggle dating again. Like I'm
Because they
not
get
honest.
romantically involved with people they abjectly hate but they think are useful, and then they wonder why they are being treated like shrewish harpies who don't give either philia or pragma when they don't give philia or pragma.
that, Marriage literally is a duty, an obligation. It is just
I mean, you make a
it's insane
vow
that
when
people
you
don't
enter
see it
into
that
the
way.
damned thing.
Yeah, you're literally swearing a vow before either the state or God to stay with this person
Not
through
to mention
all
all of
kinds of
your friends and
trials and
close relations
tribulations.
and shit.
Yeah. All right. Hmm.
But
So then what?
apparently, again, this is why I get so anal retentive about the just barbaric and primitive demonization of transaction in favor of abstract sentimentality. Um, and it is primitive, it is barbaric because we have gotten so backwards that we think that abstract sentimentality is somehow more logical, more humane, more higher function than the balanced order of a transaction. And not only do I not understand it, but it seems to be one of the roots of one of the major problems in our society today. We have become a society of romantics in the like 19th century sense, where we actually disdain logic and reason and order and transaction to the point that in most situations you have to stop you have to actually catch yourself to stop yourself from demonizing it straight out. A lot of people use transactional like it's a goddamn four-letter word just by default.
Now, regarding the discussion that we had before stream, the next type of love is the type of love that I was mentioning before, where say that it's transactional, where a person could not necessarily receive their other half of the bargain. Agape is
Hmm.
often defined as unconditional sacrificial love. Agape is the kind of love that is felt by a person willing to do anything for another, including sacrificing themselves without expecting anything in return.
And see, while that is nice in theory, as we discussed off stream, my problem with that is it seems to let people off of the hook with regards to pragma. And if you took that to its logical endpoint, you would end up in the situation we currently find ourselves, where doing things just because is seen as a higher function than ever expecting a logical end result from them. Um, and I think that might be where this whole um, weed of weed of abstract sentimentality grew out of the idea that, well, agape is better than pragma, so you must avoid pragma at all costs, and in fact pragma is the devil. And then whoops, now we're left in a situation where a bunch of people with narcissistic borderline and histrionic personality disorder are getting morally indignant about how they deserve shit for free, and any attempt to glean anything transactional out of it is seen as at best primitive and barbaric, and at worst straight up evil.
I honestly think that one of the reasons why, well, mostly women balk at the transactional nature of relationships is because the idea of women being used as like transactional pawns in like say a political marriage, which is absurd because it hasn't been done for centuries.
And let's not act like the woman never got anything out of such situations.
Yeah, money, status, titles.
The ability to bang the king and then raise his son to overthrow him so you can be a dowager queen ruling from the shadows.
I feel like they always take the position of the put upon women who is forced into this with no will or agency of her own, who is just a thing to be used, which really never occurred.
I have I'm not going to say contradictory theory, but a different aspect of a theory, which is I think that a lot of women are affronted by the idea of pragma, by the idea of transaction, because they straight up view themselves as inherently better than men and morally superior to men. And so, in their minds, the relationship between men and women is not a horizontal relationship between equals. It is a vertical relationship between a servant or a knight errant and their liege lord, basically. And even then, they hate the idea of any sort of obligations of the nobility. So, not only are they viewing themselves as men's moral superiors by fiat and default, but they disdain the idea that they should care about those quote unquote underneath them.
I feel like that only occurs in situations where the man is pursuing the woman, and the woman didn't necessarily think too much about the guy, but he comes up to her, asks her out, and she says, "Yeah, okay, I'll go out with you." But if it's a situation where the woman is talking to the man, and tries to get his attention and actively pursues him, then I feel
Well,
like pragmatism would factor more into it because this is someone that she doesn't want to lose and worked hard to obtain.
but even then, in a lot of cases, even with the 20 and the 80-20 rule, they expect the man to be quote unquote fixed or moderated by the purified femininity and moral superiority of the like how many romance stories basically um follow the plot of woman lands hyper successful Chad male and then defangs and declaws him and makes him loyal to her by sheer force of her moral superiority.
Well, that's why it's fiction, though. And in reality, a lot of these women, end up realizing that the person has a mistress on the side.
Well, yeah, no, I know, but what I mean is that trope exists in fiction largely because, and perhaps in kind of a circular self-fulfilling way, that's what many women both want and expect from their their highfalutin Chad male. They want somebody with the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the resources of Elon Musk, but the politics and servilitude of a Steve Shives or a Jonathan McIntosh at the end of the day. And if they don't want to start with someone with the politics of Steve Shives and Jonathan McIntosh, they at least want to have the have the prize under their belts that she and her moral purity was able to tame the uncouth Gaston type male and turn him into the nice, good, servile feminist ally protector type.
We have a comment here from Ethereal Dragon. It says the princess mentality that is encouraged by modern feminism and parents spoiling them. Yes, like where the woman basically expects the guy to, go on a freaking quest and slay the Dark Lord just to, you know, be able to take her out on a date. Which in one of the most, iconic versions of this, it I, we don't refer to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings all the time, but in this case, it is appropriate. Where Aragon, wants to marry Eowyn, but he there are things that he has to do in order to be worthy of her. But it's not Eowyn that gives him these tasks. Like Eowyn already wants him. It's Elrond who says, "If you want to be worthy of my daughter, you will do these things," and he freaking does
And
them because he's the Chad Aragon.
yeah, but and to Ethereal Dragon's point, the only thing I disagree with you on Ethereal is that I don't think it's a modern phenomena. I mean, some of the earliest stories we have in the written word are knight goes off to slay the dragon, and I don't think that's a freaking coincidence. Um, I think maybe more implicitly and less explicitly than it is now, but on some level that is has always been what gets women hot under the collar. And in this, and by the same token, we also have stories as old as the hills about the bestial or demon lover who the woman purifies with her moral superiority, the Beauty and the Beast type thing of there is this bestial male with all this primal primitive power, but by virtue of her civilizing him, he can go from being the beast to being the person with just as much strength, just as much ferocity, but used on the behalf of civilization and also small print women, don't you know? So, like,
Well, because it's just
for as much as we can highlight the absurdity and the sort of distilled, crystallized nature of modern female attitudes, I don't think there's that much of a gulf between the 12th century uh, woman creaming herself over romance literature and the modern day woman creaming herself over Christian Grey or Edward Cullen or whomever the new heartthrob character is in romance fiction.
the funny thing is though, and especially in regard to Beauty and the Beast, um, because because the Beast gets involved with Belle, he becomes vastly less powerful by the end of the story.
Yeah, I mean it's basically a meme at this point, but I've seen a lot of like parodies of Beauty and the Beast where as soon as the prince transforms, um, Belle goes, you should grow a beard and start working out more and stuff so that you can look a little bit more like the man I fell in love with.
Yeah, transforms back into a human, loses all dark triad traits that attracted her in the first place.
Yeah, like which is funny because in Jean Cocteau's version, the prince and the Gaston like character whose name is Avenant, they're played by the same actor. So if Beauty and the Beast was a little bit more loyal to earlier versions of the story, he would have gone from looking like the Beast to looking like a twin of Gaston.
It, there was an interesting.
Although, in fairness, and I give props to earlier versions of Beauty and the Beast for this, the whole she has to tame him aspect of Beauty and the Beast was something that was basically Disney's invention. In the original story, the whole point was for Belle to look past the appearance of the beast to see the kind and noble and gentle person underneath that was there all along.
Well,
Which that in and of itself, that shift from Jean Cocteau or earlier versions of Beauty and the Beast to Disney's Beauty and the Beast is an extension of what we were just talking about. The idea that in the past, at least, there was occasionally a nod to, okay, and women also have to work to be worthy of the hero. Whereas in the '90s with Disney's Beauty and the Beast, it was all about, oh, you can totally fix that beast male there, Belle, and that's your hero's arc, don't you know? Because strong, independent
well,
woman.
here's the thing. Like, I forget who, but someone pointed this out. But in any other story, Gaston would have been the hero. Like, he is the strong, masculine hunter, the defender of the village. And hold on. And even though Belle shows no interest in them when he tries to talk to her. He may have been a bit crude about it, but whatever. He is still willing to go and risk his life against this terrible monster to try and return her to her family.
At risk of being super, thanks for asking. Um, the story would have been much better if Belle had stayed with the Beast and Gaston and LeFou had gotten together. Because, I mean, for the love of God, LeFou very obviously has a man crush on Gaston you could see from space.
Well,
And
didn't they make him gay in the remake?
okay, but that's the thing. One, Disney lip service the shit out of it. It happens in one scene and never mentioned again. But two, I refuse to believe that the '90s version wasn't gay already. Because I mean, for the love of God, the man straight up serenades Gaston. He makes up a song on the spot about how awesome Gaston is. That is a man crush you could see from space.
But a man crush doesn't necessarily have to be sexual.
No, but I mean, it is a bit. Half the song is about how physically imposing and awesome Gaston is.
Well, I think isn't in the story at that point he's trying to basically gas Gaston up because he's feeling down on himself because he couldn't you know get Belle.
Yeah, and in a better version of this story, he would have thrown in a line about how you should forget Belle and end up with me. Like it if Taylor Swift had been alive back in the '90s, you could literally throw the song "You Belong with Me" in there, and it would make just as much sense.
Can we please not talk about Taylor Swift? Like I am so
Okay.
sick of hearing. Like for the it's honestly I'm getting to dislike the woman at this point. She has done nothing to me. Like I find her mid at best. I'm not really a fan of her music, but I don't hate it. But how many times people are bringing this woman up? I'm genuinely beginning to dislike her.
Yeah, fair enough. I honestly, I still remember when she was like 16 when I was in like middle school, and I can't.
Yeah,
I honestly, kudos to her for keeping her career going this long because I mean, I would have thought her career would have been in the rearview mirror by now. I thought she would have gone the way of like Justin Bieber and shit. But kudos to her for keeping her career going this long. But she basically has been doing the same shtick for a decade and a half at this point, and somehow she's still as relevant to Zoomers, if not more, than she was to me and millennials. Even though I remember when her first like three major hits became hits.
yeah. Well, Taylor Swift fans are mentioned later in this article, so let's get through it. Next, we have a very important type of love, storge. Storge is familial love. Storge is the natural love that family members have for one another. I don't really think this one requires a lot of explanation.
Yeah, it's sort of a duh, and we'll move on.
Yeah,
Of
there
course,
is
there might be a small mention of the fact that, the nuclear family is in a fucking omni-shambles at the moment, largely because of the sexual revolution and the feminist theory that preceded it. But oh well.
also one thing that I find very troubling is the fact that oftentimes you'll see those videos where like the kid will have like a loving family, they'll like be on good terms with their parents, and then they go to college, get indoctrinated, and then their parents are now the enemy.
Again, if you need evidence of this, just look at before and after glow up pictures.
I remember you know I forget where, but I heard this like where this mantra was basically shouted at these feminist meetings. I think back in the '60s or '70s, where they specifically said that their target was to break up the nuclear family. Like, how can you possibly consider yourself the good guys if you're intentionally breaking up families?
Because they thought the structure of the family was oppressive and like hyper normative and shit, which in fairness there might be a half of a kernel of truth in there somewhere, because um there are people who straight up don't deserve your honor no matter how related to you they are. Um but the thing is, taking those rare examples of, okay, these people family or not, don't deserve your affection. Um, Taking those rare examples and acting as though they are the default setting for basically every family is straight up cult behavior. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the quintessential aspects of cult behavior is alienating you from your family and or support network.
I mean, to break the familiar bonds, a person usually has to go very far.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Ethereal Dragon says, if, and you'll like this one, if Taylor Swift was around during the witch trial, she would accuse other women of witchcraft for getting the men she wants.
I mean, yeah, that was a thing that they did, and that is a thing I could see her doing. Um, Even though she's almost literally a goddamn siren at this point.
Let's see. Next one is this next version of love specifically refers to Taylor Swift fans. See, mania. Mania is obsessive love. Mania is the kind of love that a stalker feels towards their victim.
or a ideologue or religious person feels towards their saint. Cough, cough. Greta Thunberg. Cough. Or AOC. Or basically every like nominated champion of social justice is is this. Anita Sarkeesian back in the day, Lacey Green, Francesca Ramsey.
You
Um,
know, I would not put these people in the same you know vein as actual religious saints, because sainthood and actual religion usually requires some sort of great sacrifice, usually the person's life,
well,
in
but
defense of the faith.
in the parlance of social justice, victimhood is the ultimate sacrament. So
Oh yes,
being a
victimhood
professional
followed by
victim
a
is
thousand.
as good as nominating yourself for sainthood by the law of social justice.
Yeah, victimhood followed by TV appearances and $10 million.
Yeah, five grand for an hour of 5 grand for an hour of public speaking was Anita's going rate back in the day.
That is 5 grand for that woman's opinions. Is
Like
you deserve to lose your
I'm
money.
sure we've been going for almost an hour. Where's our 5 grand apiece?
Your opinions are far more intelligent.
Like I I don't want to toot our horn here, but if Lacey Green and Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe fucking Quinn can get invited to the UN and paid 5 grand for an hour of public speaking, then something is very rotten in the state of Denmark that my bank account is as empty as a miser's heart right now.
We're not women, so we're not oppressed.
I don't know about you. I have the gay card, the cripple card, and the religious minority card. I can play that game, and you at least have the race card, man.
It's true. Where's our money? Let's see. It's the
If
type of
if
love.
we must play social justice strip poker, then I think we have cards enough. We should lobby the UN for victimizing us by not financing our financing our wildest dreams. Where's my freaking island of hedonistic nonsense?
See, here's another comment from Ethereal Dragon. Harry and Meghan are terrible people. Yeah, I've never understood Harry and Meghan fans.
I I will target that mostly at Megan because by all accounts Harry used to be a bro before his royal bollocks got removed ceremoniously by his significant other.
Let's see, mania is excessive love that reaches the point of obsession or madness. Mania describes what a jilted lover feels when they are extremely jealous of a rival, or the unhealthy obsession that can result from mental illness. I mean, isn't mania a type of mental illness?
Well, I mean, it used to basically be a catch-all term for any like like any sort of emotional or mental high, or any condition that caused an emotional or mental high, as opposed to melancholia, which was the depressive version.
It,
I mean, it's where we get the word manic from.
I feel like media is in today's age is mostly aimed at like celebrities, and the fact that people can get this. But I take that back. I feel like today it's now mostly aimed at OnlyFans models.
Well, that's the thing. I will soften the criticism with regards to celebrities who have actually done something to warrant that celebrity, but there are people who are literally famous just for being famous, like the Kardashians, or Greta, or Anita, or again any of the saints of social justice are basically just famous for being famous slash victims in the public sphere.
See, I also feel like here's the thing. Like, I feel like there are a lot of people who are seeking that type of love, like just like these massive fandoms that are just like
Yeah, they
rabidly
they
obsessed.
want they want an icon to worship, basically.
No, they would. There are a lot of people. I think a lot of women, especially like things in like Instagram, where they want to be the icon that's being worshipped,
Yeah,
and they never seem to be prepared for the negative ramifications that come with something like being stalked.
yeah, it's the famous, harassment blah blah nonsense that they do. Like they want the fame, they want the glory, they want the pomp and circumstance, but they're surprised when at least some proportion of their viewers hate their guts. Meanwhile, the actual data suggests that men get that kind of harassment more than women do, but men just shrug it off because, well, it's the internet, what are you gonna do? Whereas women go on a goddamn crusade for at least a decade over it.
Let's see. We have the last one we're going to talk about, ludus. Let's see. Ludus is actually from Latin rather than Greek. It means game or play, which fits with the type of love it refers to. One possible Greek equivalent is, I can't pronounce that because it's in Greek, meaning courtship. Let's see. Ludus is playful, non committal love. So it's like flirting.
Or like the act of courting, which by the way, courtship is basically forbidden now, because if you try to court someone who defines you as beneath them, you're an incel and a terrorist and possibly the devil.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like we've gotten so far from like the way relationships used to be that even if you just wanted to court someone, they would look at you strange like, what is this thing you are doing? I don't understand what this is.
Yeah, it's literally that old-fashioned thing you're doing is so foreign that it's actually kind of gross. Some it's similar to pragma, in the sense of, if you act as though there is any like gamification or any transactional nature to relationships, be it friendships, be it romantic, be it whatever, you are the devil, because you are trying to make something that we have morally decided should be abstract and sentimental at all times into something rational or orderly, and that is forbidden. Whether it be a game or whether it be a transaction, you are the devil for trying to turn something abstract into something practical or material, which is just the wrong way around as far as I'm concerned. That's literally going. We don't want to be higher apes. We want to be old-fashioned apes. We want to shun everything that makes us rational beings, because abstraction and emotion are more important, yo. Somehow.
Well, specifically in regard to courting, this is why I think that fathers were so important because we see now a lot of days about women who, are being used for casual hookups and then crying about it on like TikTok and Instagram. But I feel like with if the point of the father in regards to courtship was to automatically filter out all the guys that he knew she shouldn't be involved with.
Hmm. Or
And if
or in another sense, to basically act as the enforcer of her will, to be the screening process.
the thing is like now women are talking about having trauma from past relationships or having baggage or just having scars or
Body count, cough,
you,
cough.
yeah you'll hear them use the phrase needing to heal. But the thing is like I feel like a lot of those things would not be necessary if the father was in place to block out the men who would cause that trauma in the first place. And I feel like you know obviously because of the familial love, a father would not want his daughter to get involved with somebody that he could tell was going to hurt her. And honestly, like with the type of guy that he did approve of, even if he did like him and see potential in him, like I feel like he would still try to get the young man to like prove that he was okay. You're good enough to date, but there would still be that final hurdle of the
Well,
guy
I mean,
going to the father and asking for permission to marry
there was a
his daughter.
reason why in the 19th century there was this phenomenon referred to as a marriageable wage, i.e., a wage below which a father would not consent to a person marrying his daughter, nor would a daughter be expected to consent to a pauper, basically.
I mean, to be fair, like if you can barely just take care of yourself, like how are you going to like effort to take care of a family? Because back then, getting married, like children were going to happen. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't like we don't
it was
like
also basically a one-time thing, all things considered.
yeah. So like if you could really take care of yourself now, like it's just going to be a disaster if you get married to my daughter and have children. Like it's going to be rough.
And also, while we're on the topic, if feminists want to read about how that's oppressive because it basically means the father is her keeper, blah blah. Usually, the woman still had final say. Like even if a father liked the son or liked the suitor and was willing to give his blessing, if if the daughter then immediately went, I don't want him, then the father was expected basically to go, well, you've been rejected, so GTFO in not so many
Yeah.
words.
I mean that's the way it goes. I mean you can't date someone that doesn't want to go out with you. I mean tough luck. Try.
Well, I bring that specifically up though to short circuit the whole feminist. How dare you say that daughter should be her father's property? Blah. And it's like no, that's not how it worked. He basically acted as her romantic secretary, as far as courting was concerned.
Which is like I feel like in regards to having to deal with the father, I feel like most guys would be willing to deal with the father, willing to prove themselves, go on the quest like Aragorn did, if they knew that the women that they were trying to date was didn't have a lot of baggage, didn't have like a high body count, didn't have a bunch of trauma. But the thing is like now guys are quick to jump through hoops for women who are basically just going to be like a drain on their lives.
Again, because expecting something in return for your efforts is haram and forbidden and transactional, therefore derp. Because we, the goddesses, the morally superior women, are good enough to deserve things just because. But don't you expect us to give you things in reciprocation? Because that would imply we're equals, and we're not equals. We're better than you. Derp.
Also women back then were a lot more pragmatic because here's the thing, even if they liked the guy, they knew that okay, marrying him is another huge step because once we get married, like that's it, we're locked
Hmm.
in.
Well, and also it must be said that like the while romantic love has always been a thing, it's been increasingly more central to to courtship as time goes on. There were plenty of cases um where there was almost no romantic or sexual desire for the person at all, but he had a good household. He was well respected. He had clout and power and blah. So it was a um financial and political marriage rather than one of romance.
Yeah,
That didn't mean that romance was gone or that romance was unimportant or anything. It was just that there was this aspect where it's like romance is great, but there are other factors to consider.
there are even situations where they got married for practical reasons, but then developed into liking each other over time.
Yeah, which again leads to the whole back in the day there was some kind of overlap between all of them, whereas now it's basically Eros or you're the devil. These are the
I mean,
only options.
yeah, like there are a lot of people complaining nowadays about the state of marriage and about how young men are getting married or
Well, I
and how they
mean,
see no benefit in getting married.
think of the whole fresh and fit thing of like um all these women with body counts in the triple digits going, well, men should just bend over backwards to please me. It's literally, if you don't excite my arrows, if you don't you know jump my jumping bean, then you are inadmissible to the discussion, period.
What do you
No
think?
matter how loyal you are, no matter how characteristic or virtuous you are, no matter how many resources you have, no matter how many long-term prospects, if you don't excite arrows in me, then there's the door.
The thing is, no one can sustain that for the course of an entire relationship. It's impossible. So you have to have some sort of pragma included in the relationship. Otherwise, it's never going to last at all.
But
Like it's
unfortunately
doomed to
people don't,
failure.
because pragma is transactional, which is entitlement derp. And even what's the other one, the game one?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me pull it back up. I believe it's Ludus.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, Ludus.
Even Ludus is suspect and childish and primitive or something. Like, don't you treat me like I'm a prize to be won, even as you are obligated to try and win me, because if not, then fuck you.
Well, here's the thing. In regards to Ludus, like it wasn't just the thing for the young men. Like parents would often uh, warn their sons against getting involved with women who they described as of being of low moral character.
Hmm.
So like, so like, parents didn't just try to protect their daughter from bad men. Like, parents did also try and warn their sons against loose women.
Yeah. Except now to even speak of the phenomena of the loose woman is misogyny, but to speak of anything but a loose man is also misogyny. Men cannot be
Yeah,
seen as virtuous entities capable of exciting our compassion. They are appliances that must be both practically useful and excite our eros, or they have failed.
let's see. The thing with dragon. Feminists lie about history to make them look like victims. Most victims in the witch trials on both sides of the sea were men, and most accusers were women in America.
Yes, I have beaten that particular dead horse many a time, but here's the thing, and this is the really disturbing thing. They don't know they're lying. They are simply mistaken. They are not intentionally being deceptive. They straight do not know they are lying, for the most part.
I feel like at some point they have to be allowed. Because here's the thing: like, these topics have been discussed like many times by many different people, and I feel like at a certain point you've been exposed to enough of the material. Like you have had these, falsehoods, you know, revealed to be just that, and at a certain point, if you don't, accept them, then you are lying, and you're also lying to yourself.
Well, but that's the thing. These people generally are fundamentalists, for one thing, and they see any contrary worldview as again, to use the religious imagery, they see any contrary worldview as the devil's work. And the sad thing is, the average woman is so gynocentric just off the shelf that even if she's not explicitly a feminist, she does implicitly believe in most of the worldview of feminism without necessarily even ascribing to it. And the really sad thing is that applies to a vast majority of traditionalist women as well. That's the Tommy Loren. You should make sure you're good enough for me before propositioning me shit. It's that same gynocentrism. It's just through the lens of a Bible instead of a Bell Hooks textbook.
There are so many base things in the Bible. I should bring them up one time for an episode.
Yeah, but it's a shame if no if the only parts of the Bible that people remember are the gynocentric blue pill parts and never ever the red pill or based parts. You still have to actually make people use the based parts if you want them to use the based parts.
Are there any particular aspects of love that we just talked about that you want to dig further into?
Um, no, I think we covered them all pretty thoroughly.
Okay, it's good talking to you, everyone. Do you have any final words about love?
Don't be with someone who sees you as a glorified expensive appliance. If they can't see you as a person, then not only do they not deserve you, but you don't deserve to be treated like a fucking object. And for the love of all the things, don't stick anything in crazy. You will regret it. You will regret it soon and for the rest of your life if you do.
See, my final words would have to be that any love that does not have a sense of duty attached to it isn't love at all. It's just passion, and all passion fades eventually.
Also, find the based women. They are out there. They do exist.
Everybody, I've been Mystery.
I have been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and this has been a very special Valentine's Day episode of The Duality of Man. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everybody.